All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lynn Tremonti. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio Immigrant Alliance. We're here today to answer your questions about a lawsuit that was filed yesterday on behalf of Mr. Luis Tenelanda against Butler County, the Butler County Jail, Sheriff Jones, and Sergeant Corneal Rowe on behalf of Mr. Luis Tenelanda. On June 8th, 2025, Mr. Luis Tenelanda was in his cell where he was detained for immigration purposes, which is a civil violation, when he was assaulted by Sergeant Rowe. We'll hear more details from the lawyers about what happened and the laws that were violated. But the thing I want to say before we hear that is that this didn't need to happen. Mr. Tenelanda has lived in this country for decades. He has US citizen children. He was a construction worker who built fire stations, police stations, and schools. He was very proud of his work in this country. He had good relationships with the police. He was really sad to be mistreated by another officer. And he told me that that really hurt, that he, felt that he had done good things with police and that to have an officer treat him that way in such a disrespectful way hurt him deeply. He still cannot use his arm. He cannot work. He cannot provide for his family. And, we knew this was going to happen. We said this when we heard that Sheriff Jones was trying to get his contract back. He doesn't care about the people in his jail. He doesn't believe that immigrants have human rights. And this is not the only example of mistreatment at that jail. We have a hotline where people call us and tell us what's going on in the jail. It took a long time to develop the evidence to bring this case, but there are many more examples of abuses happening there. With that, I'll turn it over to Whit Freilich from Norris Law Group to tell us more about this case.
Thanks so much, Lynn. And thank you all for being here and for this opportunity to share about our client, Luis Tenelanda's experience at Butler County Jail. As you will hear, Mr. Tenelanda was the victim of an unprovoked attack based on his race, and he continues to suffer the consequences of that attack. Mr. Tenelanda is suing Butler County, its sheriff, and Butler County Jail Sergeant Corneal Rowe for Sergeant Rowe's racist and bigoted physical assault on him, and the environment and policies that led to it, and the limited accountability that has followed this violent and hurtful act. As many of you should know, the Constitution's 8th and 14th Amendments protect Mr. Tenelanda, like anyone held in custody, from unreasonable use of force by staff. And Ohio law provides for an additional mechanism of accountability for crimes in the form of damages, whether or not they're charged by municipal authorities. And also, it's a civil offense to assault someone without provocation. And Mr. Tenelanda is suing Sergeant Rowe on that basis. So here's what happened. On a Sunday evening in last June 2025, other detainees requested their scheduled recreational break that they received as a daily activity, part of their routine, and they were told by guards that it wasn't happening that day. They knocked on their cell doors, demanding their break, and several guards came into the pod. Sergeant Rowe was among them, and he started yelling at the detainees and Mr. Tenelanda, calling him and others illegals, a Mexican son of a bitch, and savages. He entered Mr. Tenelanda's cell, yelling at him. Mr. Tenelanda didn't understand what he was yelling, but he could tell that Sergeant Rowe was gesturing at his bed, telling him to go to his bed. So he started moving towards the bed, and Mr. Rowe punched him hard in the stomach, knocking him against his bed, causing him to lose consciousness. Following that assault, Mr. Tenelanda, after he woke up, vomited multiple times, and he's experienced severe and ongoing pain in his arm, where he struck the bed, preventing him from working. As Lynn mentioned, Mr. Tenelanda um, makes a living working with his hands, and he can't do that anymore. He attempted to report the incident while he was still at the jail, and he requested medical care. He was minimally provided medical care. He was ultimately taken to a hospital when he continued to explain that he needed care, and they confirmed his injury, but refused to give him his records. The guard that accompanied him took the records, and he was unable to obtain his records, his medical records, when he returned to the jail. Although acknowledging the severity of the incident, an internal affairs report was made, Sergeant Rowe received a slap on the wrist. So, Mr. Tenelanda is seeking to hold Sergeant Rowe accountable because the jail, the sheriff, and the county did not. And because this assault constitutes a violation of Mr. Tenelanda's Eighth Amendment right against cruel and unusual punishment, jail, and therefore county authorities, were responsible for preventing it through adequate training and supervision of Sergeant Rowe and everyone else that Mr. Tenelanda interacted with and who defined his incarceration and experience at the jail. As Lynn also mentioned, this is far from the first time that the jail has had problems with violent assaults on inmates and detainees. We've represented other detainees who have been victimized by its guards and its systematic failure to hold them accountable. We currently have two pending cases, Bayong versus County of Butler and Benty versus Butler County et al., regarding other racist assaults at the jail. This pattern is deeply concerning, and my colleagues will address some of the bigger picture implications of that pattern. Thank you very much for being here today and for your interest in Mr. Tenelanda's case, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Whit. I'm just going to admit a couple of people who just tried to join. And now we're going to hear from Gabe Davis. He's the executive director of the Ohio Justice and Policy Center and also a lawyer on this case.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Whit. The Ohio Justice and Policy Center and Norris Law Group filed this case because human rights don't stop at the jailhouse door, and they don't stop at the border either. Jails that contract with ICE to hold immigration detainees are not lawless zones. They are bound by the Constitution, they are bound by federal detention standards, and they are bound by basic human decency. Butler County Jail has failed on all three fronts. Let's be clear, the law protects everyone incarcerated at that jail. Detainees who are arrested, anyone who's facing charges, and yes, the immigrant who is a target for deportation. The law does not grade human beings by their immigration status when it comes to protection from violence. The rights that are at stake here, freedom from excessive force, freedom from cruel and unusual punishment, freedom from race-based violence, belong to human beings. Not just citizens, not just some of us, they belong to all of us as human beings. Now, Sheriff Jones runs that jail. He sets the culture. He is responsible for what his officers do inside those walls. This lawsuit holds him and the county accountable for those failures. This is about more than just one sergeant's actions. It's about a culture of abuse and inhumane treatment. Sheriff Jones and Butler County Jail failed to properly train and supervise their staff. The jail's own policies and binding federal standards prohibited exactly what Sergeant Rowe did here. The policies do not allow force to be used as punishment. The policies require documentation of all uses of force. The policies require that medical attention be provided immediately to people who are subjected to uses of force. Sergeant Rowe violated every one of those requirements. He used force here not because he had to, but because he didn't like how Mr. Tenelanda looked and where he came from, and he made his motivation clear. This wasn't about discipline. It was a bold, racist attack, the kind of thing you do if you expect to get away with it. Sergeant Rowe didn't file an incident report after the use of force, and it's not clear that anyone else at the jail did either. That tells you that something about the culture here is deeply off. Sergeant Rowe was supposed to seek immediate medical attention. He didn't. Again, that suggests and indicates that something about the culture at the jail is deeply, deeply flawed. As my colleagues mentioned, this is not an isolated failure. This We've already seen in other lawsuits that have been introduced, Bayonne versus County of Butler, which is cited in this lawsuit, that other officers are accused of assaulting detainees and using racial slurs. We know that lawmakers here in Ohio have expressed concern about the treatment of detainees and conditions at the jail. So this is not an isolated incident. And we are here to say that enough is enough. When the same violations keep happening at the same facility, under the same leadership, that is not a mistake or a gap. That is a choice. So in this lawsuit, we are not just asking a federal court to compensate Luis Tenelanda for what he has suffered, although he certainly deserves that. We are also asking through this lawsuit that the federal court declare on the record that Butler County and Sheriff Jones have a custom policy and practice of failing to adequately supervise and train their staff, and that they've acted with deliberate indifference to the rights of people in their custody. That declaration matters. It cannot be quietly settled away. It is a statement of institutional accountability. With that, I'll turn this back over to Lynn.
Thank you, Gabe. And I want to talk about how brave it is for Luis, Bayang, Ahmed, Mr. Benti to come forward. You're in a jail. You are told that you have no power. You are told that you're nothing. Um, when this happened, they were in their cells for 22 hours a day. And they're in there, if you're in there for ICE, you're not being charged with a crime. You're in there for a civil violation. This is one of the only areas of law where they could put you in a criminal jail for a civil violation, take away your liberty. So I want you to think about how brave it is for people to come forward and say, this happened to me, and go into a court and say, this happened to me and I don't want it to happen to anybody else. Now I'm going to read a statement from Luis, and I'm going to show his picture. Oh, hopefully I can. Here, can you see his picture, guys? Can you see his picture? What?
Just the upper part of it.
Oh,
Make
shoot.
it, you can make it a little bigger.
I don't know how to do that. Ugh, let me see. Oh, no. I don't really know how to make it any bigger. I'll just read the statement. So I'm going to read it in Spanish and English. Gracias por su apoyo moral. Estoy agradecido a todos los que me apoyaron en mi proceso cuando estaba detenido, en especial a usted, Ms. Lynn, y su grupo de abogados. Decirles que los hispanos no somos criminales como nos dicen y tratan. Yo estaba trabajando en una compañía muy prestigiosa que se llama in Dayton, Ohio, que construye escuelas, edificios para la policía y bomberos y hoteles. Yo trabajé en todos esos lugares hasta mi último día, pagando mis impuestos todos los años. Y no es justo que nos traten así. Sé que no todos los policías son malos ni racistas, pero ese día estaba de mala suerte que apareció ese policía y me pegó y me fracturó mi hombro izquierdo para el resto de mi vida. Ahora mismo me siento mal con mi hombro. No puedo trabajar ni alzar cosas pesadas. Espero que se haga justicia por todos los maltratos que nos dieron en esa cárcel de Hamilton, Ohio. Gracias y bendiciones, Luis Tenelanda. Now I'm going to read his statement in English. Thanks for your moral support. I am grateful to all those who supported me throughout the time I was detained, especially you, Ms. Lynn, and your team of lawyers. Tell them that we Hispanics are not criminals like they call us and treat us. I was working for a very prestigious company called in Dayton, Ohio, that built schools, buildings for police and firemen, and hotels. I worked in all of those places until my last day, paying my taxes every year. And it's not fair that they treat us like this. I know that not all police officers are bad or racist, but that day it was my bad luck that this officer appeared and struck me and fractured my left shoulder for the rest of my life. To this day, my shoulder feels bad. I cannot work or even lift heavy things. I hope we achieve justice for all of the mistreatment we received in that jail in Hamilton, Ohio. Thank you and blessings, Luis Tenelanda. The first time that they had this contract at the Butler County Jail, other detainees sent a letter about what was going on in the jail, and they addressed it to anyone who will listen to us, and they signed their names. They talked about violence, racism, medical neglect. They talked about people who had cancer and weren't getting treatment. That's happening again. There was a man there who had cancer. He was arrested the day before he was about to go in for a scan to see if his cancer had spread. There are people there who are diabetic and not getting proper care and who are signing up for their deportation because they think they're going to die in that jail. Um, Sheriff Jones likes to talk about how, you shouldn't expect the Ritz-Carlton quality of food in that jail. When you're diabetic, you need healthy food to manage your diabetes. People are going to die if they don't get healthy food. I mean, that's what's going on. I need to stop. I could go on all day. We want to take your questions. We only can take questions from reporters. You can either come off mute and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. Please let us know what outlet you're with, and we'll just start with the questions. So, who would like to go first?
Hi, it's Valerie with WCPO Channel 9. I was just curious, lots of claims, allegations in this lawsuit. Really unfortunate to hear what happened to this man. Was any of this caught on camera? Did you guys put in like requests for body camera, security camera, anything like that? Like what's kind of like the video evidence of this, if it exists in this case?
Yeah. Um, so to date, we are not aware of any video evidence that exists. I believe that the body camera was not uh, captured or did not capture, was not preserved such as it would capture this event. But we do know that there are contemporaneous reports of this that were filed. We know that our client reported it, and we know that the medical records in this case corroborate what happened.
Hi, there's Sheena Elsie here from Spectrum News. I just wanted to talk about you said this is not the first time. We know that we've done stories about what happened before. Is this the first lawsuit though? Can you talk about how many lawsuits there are now and where things stand with those now?
Uh, sure. I can address at least the two that we're involved with, Bayong and versus County of Butler and Bentley versus Butler County. And both of those are deep in the litigation process, in discovery. So uh, that's kind of where they're at, and we've continued to develop the evidence through that process, and are continuing to litigate in those two cases. And I think Lynn has a broader and Gabe have a broader perspective on other incidents and how they've been addressed through the legal system. But those are both pending cases in the Southern District of Ohio.
Hi,
Um,
this is Marty Schladen at the Ohio Capital Journal. I've got two questions. One is the officer received a slap on the wrist, you said. Could you give some details about that? And also, I take it Luis is no longer in the jail. Can you explain under what circumstances he was released and where he is now?
yeah, hi Marty, I can take this. So somebody filed a complaint internally because there was an internal affairs investigation. So somebody thought that what Sergeant Rowe did was wrong. And when Rowe was served with his papers, his union rep was Officer Blanton, who is a defendant in the Bayan case. So this shows you just kind of how corrupt they are internally. And the violation was a use of force violation. When they completed the investigation, they returned and said that Sergeant Rowe didn't use too much force. but that he had violated a different policy, which was that he didn't file a report saying he used force. So they're admitting that he used force. Um, so he was given an oral reprimand. Um, and all I have to say about this is we can't rely on them to police themselves. And this is clear. This is a clear example of how the culture of the jail and Sheriff Jones is anything goes. And they believe that they can do anything they want inside their walls. And, Sheriff Jones himself sets the tone. He, in 2023, he said, in response to a question about whether the state could regulate him, he said, they can't tell me shit. Right. So that's the attitude that he has. And what was your second question? Oh, where's Luis now? Yes, he was deported to Ecuador after 30 years in this country. And his family is very much suffering without him.
When was he deported?
I think it was August. He was transferred to a jail in the South, either Texas or Louisiana. I'm not remembering. And he spent several weeks in that jail down there. Do we have any more questions?
Will you all, sorry, it's Morella Porter with Local 12. Will you all be able to provide, I know we weren't able to get a good picture of Luis. Will you all be able to provide a photo for us to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I can even see if I can attach one in the chat. But I do have one.
Thank you.
I can share that picture, I think.
Oh, you can? Okay. I'll put my email as well. And I'll put a link that has, oh, thank you. Has a copy of the complaint. We have copies of the other lawsuits. We have a summary of the complaint. I have a copy of his statement, all that kind of stuff. All right. If
Also,
there's no other,
I was just going to say, is there a copy? I know you said there's no video, but the medical records prove everything. Is there a copy of that as well? Those medical records?
so I'm not sure if we're allowed to share his medical records because of HIPAA. So, you have a
Yeah, we've
medical
not made
background
those public.
and a legal background. Yeah, I
We've
don't know
not made
what
those
the law
public
is
as
on
part
that
of the
background.
lawsuit.
Do you have the report that was filed against that sergeant? Is that available?
We do have those records. As Wood said, we're not making those available right now at this juncture.
Okay.
We're still at the beginning, and obviously there's going to be additional discovery in this case as well.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Yeah, I also want to highlight how the jail wouldn't give Luis his own records. He had to request the medical records from the hospital after he was deported. So, um, I just wanted to add that in there for context.
Through counsel.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, are there any other questions? I have one question actually. What happens now and how long will it take? So considering we're in 2026 and you filed a case in 2020.
Yeah, these things take time, which I think, the next steps are we'll see if the county and jail and, well, jail through its sheriff want to talk to us in any substantive way, but I think that's unlikely. And so we'll have to continue to fight over the next years, however long it takes, for Mr. Tenelanda.
Well, thank you for everything, Whit. And Gabe, any closing remarks?
Well, I have one quick question.
Oh,
So
sure.
I'm with La Prensa. I'm glad you asked that, Lynn, because I was actually thinking that in my head as well. But also, the family, how's the family being impacted? And are there services? What does the family need if we're going to put something out. Is there something else that we could put out?
Yeah, so the family's been impacted tremendously. Luis was the center of the family. He was the main provider. Um, Luis has three adult children, but one is a young adult. His oldest child is in law school, and I think is gonna, if he can mentally get through this, is going to become a fighter for justice, hopefully. His middle child is the one who is kind of like the fixer and the person who is trying to keep everybody moving forward. And when he was in the Butler County Jail, they lived 10 hours away. Luis was actually here for work. He wasn't, the whole family doesn't live here. And his two oldest children would take a bus 10 hours to have a video visit with him for 20 minutes. And they did that several times. That's how close they are. Because at Butler, they won't even let you do remote video visits. So they had to take this bus. And they're a very religious family. So they're trying to hold on to that. But I mean, they don't know when they're going to see each other again. Immediately after his deportation, his middle child went to visit him in Ecuador. But as you can learn by reading our book, Broken Hope, that families, there's a lot of breakdown in families psychologically after deportation, because, people don't know who to blame. They don't know when it's hard, it's stressful. And so they're going through a very difficult time, but it's a very united family, and I'm worried for them. And they're going through a difficult time.
Hey, Lynn, can you say where they were taking the bus from?
No, I'm not giving out. I'll just say that it was 10 hours away. Thank you. Sorry, Marty. All right. Gabe, any last words? Maybe you could, yeah, anything maybe in the greater context of Butler County or anything like that.
Yeah, well, what I would leave folks with is obviously Mr. Tenelanda is no longer in the country, and certainly some might say, "Well, he's not here. What can you do?" And we reject that framing entirely. Accountability is not contingent on whether or not the victim is still in the country. There's no deportation exception to the Constitution. And if that were the case, if accountability were contingent on that, then deportation would become a tool to be used with impunity, or you could abuse someone, ship them out, and then walk away free. And that's not how our Constitution works. We're not going to allow that. And this is the first step, but it's an important step toward accountability. And so we'll continue to press.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being
You
here.
as well.